Well, hello there. Thank you for joining my channel today. This is the Facts on JW channel. This is Casey, your host, and today we're diving into a deeply personal story that many of you have been asking to hear more about, the experience of growing up in a religiously divided household. Our guest today is someone who has lived this reality firsthand as a child caught between two worlds, raised in a family where Jehovah's Witness beliefs created division in her home. She navigated the complex emotions of feeling conflicted about faith, belonging, and family loyalty from a very young age. But what makes her story unique is that despite years of exposure to the organization's teachings and the pressure that comes with this environment, she ultimately chose not to get baptized. So let's hear her story. Without further ado, let's get into the interview. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, thank you for joining my channel today. This is the Facts on JW channel, and today we have a special guest, Nancy, and she is going to tell us her story, how many generations back you go, who all was in your family that influenced you to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and why you left.
Okay. Well, in our family, it's just like one generation or two generations. It was my mother, and she was introduced to the Jehovah Witnesses when she was pretty young. My parents got married when they were real young, 16 and 20. And so I'm going to say probably about 5 or 6 years into their marriage, my mom met some witnesses, and she said that she used to always claim to be a Methodist, but when she heard that, she just knew that it was the truth. And so she did it. My dad, he never took to it, and they were young. He thought, oh, well, it's just a phase she's going to go through, or or this is just like another religion. But he started learning from some friends at his job. He worked at the shipyard, and a couple of preachers gave my dad some information about the witnesses. And he tried to convince her not to go, but she was determined to go. And then with her being determined to go, that hurt him really bad. And he got angry, and so there was just a lot of just dumb stuff, really bad stuff went on in the home. My dad, he hated it, and he always said it was a cult, and that they were brainwashed, and just all kinds of stuff. And I was so young, and I was a daddy's girl, and I was afraid of him because of the way he would rage. And before he was at the shipyard, he worked during the day. Then he went to night because he just got sick and tired of being at home when my mom would go to the Kingdom Hall. And at that time, I was probably 2 to 3 years old, maybe. She did become inactive for a little while, but then the house we moved into when I was a year old, a lady down the street came and met my mom, brought her in. And
Was it that your mother convinced your mother to want to join?
all she could ever tell me was that she just said that she felt like it was the truth.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Methodists. I know very little about the Methodists, so I don't know. She had felt a sense of belonging or something. I don't know, and maybe was just deceived with it. Well, my dad, he just he decided when I went into first grade to start working at night. He just couldn't stand it anymore, and I hated him being gone at night. And I thought it was because of me that he was going to work at night. And he tried to let me know it wasn't because of me. I remember it very well. The night that he told me he wasn't going to be home at night with us anymore. He just said that he needed to go to work at night. And by that time I was in school, and I just knew I wasn't going to hardly ever see him. And so, that gave my mom freedom, and she went and she took me and my sister with her. And I'll just tell you what I have told everybody all my life. And I really believe that the Lord helped protect my ears and whatever went inside. But I remember having to sit in there and listen to them talk and stuff. And I never got anything out of it. Nothing. And what I would imagine hearing was the Charlie Brown teacher. Womp, 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 womp,
womp. Studying? Oh, yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. We should have been studying. Here comes a stupid assignment.
But then as I got older, my dad, sometimes he would come home early from work, and he would come home early from work on a night that my mom drug us to the Kingdom Hall. And when he would get home, we didn't know he was going to be home early. And as I got older, I knew how angry he would get at her. But as I got older, he would get angry at me. I ended up taking the brunt of his anger a lot. I've had to go through a lot of counseling on so many different levels and things. And because a lot of things my dad did to me was not right. Even though he was angry, he did things he shouldn't have done. And I know he lived the rest of his life regretting it, because he did love our family. He did. I now know the reason why he did do that, started working at night, because that was the only way he could keep his family together. Or they were going to separate. They did separate a couple of times, but she would go back, and it just infuriated him. And so when I got to be, I was 11 years old, and I was just sick and tired of being made to go. And I felt like I was old enough to stay at home by myself for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So I talked to my dad, and I knew he would get angry, but I didn't know he would get as angry as he did at my mom. And so I just asked him if he would talk to her and, help something to where she wouldn't make me go, that I was old enough to stay by myself for a little while in the evenings. And he blew up at her. And I didn't know he was going to do that. And so it was really, bad. And so my mom tried to talk me into changing my mind, and I wouldn't do it. So she took me one evening to the Kingdom Hall, and it wasn't a meeting night, and I had to sit before 3 elders. And she went in with me. She did go in with me. I've heard of people where they've said when they were kids, they had to sit in front of elders by themselves. She did go in with me, but she stayed way over to the side. And they kept trying to talk me into staying and all. And they warned me that if I didn't go, that I was going to lose my friends, and that it was going to cause more problems between my parents.
Yeah.
And that it was going to make it very difficult on my mom, because I was a minor, so she had to legally take care of me.
Right.
And it was like the more they said, the more angry I got. And so I'm thinking it was a Wednesday night because the meetings back then were, they would do Bible study on Tuesday nights and meetings on Thursday nights or theocratic school and stuff. And then they would have their meetings on Sunday. So I remember them. So it may have been on a Tuesday because they said that they were going to give me some time to think about it and talk with my mom about it. And if I didn't give them, to give them an answer, and if my decision was still the same, then they would make an announcement about me at the next meeting night that I was bad association and I was going to be dealt with just like a disfellowshipped person. Now, I was 11, so this was in 1977. And I know that's telling my age, but I don't care. I've heard that there's been a lot of changes since back then. And that's what I've been learning, that they've all the time changed everything.
Were you
They
a
did.
baptized publisher?
Mm-mm.
So
No.
you were never I know you weren't baptized, you weren't even a publisher, so you weren't going out in field service.
Well, I went out in service because my mom made me go.
But you didn't count your time.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
They
Nope.
made an announcement that you were bad association.
Yeah.
Well, that is ridiculous, and you're 11. And
Yeah.
you had other siblings as well?
My sister, she's almost 7 years older than me. She took to that faith, and I just never did. And it was really hard growing up with two parents not the same, because as a kid, you don't want to take sides. But as I got a little older, I kind of felt like, because my sister leaned my mom's way, that somebody needed to be on my dad's side, and I hated it. I hated it and never wanted to take sides. Always felt like I had to take sides. But I loved both of them. And it just seemed like it never mattered what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I would get angry. My mom, she was hurt and angry. And
your sister, did she remain a Jehovah's Witness?
Yeah.
So she still is?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And your mother remained as one too, or no?
She did. But she became very inactive. I'm going to say, because I do have two younger brothers. So I'm kind of like a middle child, even though there was four of us. My sister is about close to 7 years older than me. And then the third child is almost 8 years younger than me. Then 3 years later, the third one came along. They went because they were made, but they never dedicated themselves and got baptized or anything. So,
why did she become inactive?
Well, my brothers came up, got older, and it just got real hard on my mom and my dad not being home at night, and they were wanting to do things in school. I ran away from home when I was 16, and I kind of jumped from the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. So it messed me up really bad, and I was a mess. My life was a mess from that point. I'm gonna say my life was a total mess for probably 25 years after.
And this was with you. You were no longer a part of the religion.
No.
Point.
No. And it was hard for my mom, and I knew it would be. And the longer I stayed at home and my dad wasn't there, and my mom was going, and I could feel that maybe she did love me, but because of her faith, it was hard for her to spend the quality time with me. and that I needed. And so my sister wouldn't have anything to do with me. And I have an aunt, my mom's sister. She wouldn't have anything to do with me either.
Oh, so she's
Um,
a witness as well.
mhm.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. And then my mom had another sister that she was the baby in their family. And she went to the Kingdom Hall and got baptized and everything when she was real young, but she ended up leaving.
okay. Do you know why
And
she left?
she was why she left. I don't know. I know she was married to a man that was um very mean to her.
Okay.
I'll just put it that way.
Um, uh, who was
Very mean.
she was a witness to?
She was.
And her husband.
Her husband was not.
Oh, he was not. Okay.
Mm-mm. And so she ended up leaving him. And then about that time, she just quit going to the Kingdom Hall. And I was a little girl. And I remember that announcement that was made about her, that she was because that she was bad association and nobody could have anything to do with her. So I never saw her again. I never laid eyes on her until, and I was maybe 5 or 6 years old about when that happened. And I never saw her again until I got up in my 20s. And then I've just seen her brief moments. So, but yeah, they did that to her, and they treated me like that too. And so yeah, when I would be out and about in town and all, if I saw any of them, they would run away from me.
Yeah. And that's crazy because you never were baptized. And just because you happen to be associated with the religion through family and were going to the meetings because you decided it wasn't for you, they basically shun you anyways.
Yeah,
Don't even have to be baptized. It's amazing.
right. But that was, yeah, that was back then. I don't know if they treat kids that are not baptized like that now. That I
They
don't know, but
they are not supposed to do that in they can mark you. They call it they can give a talk and it's where they mark someone and that's basically where they point fingers at you without naming you. And they will say, well, this is happening in the congregation and such has happened, and so you need to be aware. But and so they call it like a marking someone. But that
mm-mm.
can happen to a baptized person too, without like actually disfellowshipping or reproving you.
Yeah. So when I told my dad that, or asked my dad, and he went to my mom, and it blew up between them two, I always felt responsible for that. And I think my mom may have carried some resentment towards me about that. I'm not sure, but I kind of think she did. And then that I just didn't take to that faith, and and I was kind of just like, looking back, I was kind of left out there to the wolves almost. So I did a lot of things I should not have done. And I got in trouble and promiscuous and drugs and stuff like that, and just got messed up really bad. But all I can say is, and I don't know if I should say it here or not, but I'll say it anyway. I'll just say, but God, He ended up just coming in when I finally met with Him. And it's been a long process, but,
Yeah,
I had to forgive my parents. I
right.
had to forgive them. And then my mother, she passed away last February
Okay.
of 24. And she was kind of inactive then, but she still always claimed that faith she just knew that was the truth. And so then COVID broke out, and there was a lot of issues and it was crazy because I always thought that my sister would end up taking care of her as she got older, and my sister did try to, but my mom, it just didn't work out. That's a long story right there. It just did not work out.
Yeah, even though your sister is a witness and your mother, I guess there was maybe some things that they just weren't able to get along, maybe.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think way too much alike.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of control. A lot of control. So my mom had a stroke in 18, and then we did try moving her up here. My husband and I'm in North Carolina. She was in South Carolina, and down in Charleston, and great place. Love where I'm at though. And after her stroke, she lived with my sister for a while. It didn't work. So we brought her up here with us. Well, she wanted to bring all of her material stuff.
Yeah.
And I did not want it in my home. I just did not. But I talked with some people, and I told her, okay, you can, but we fixed a really nice room for her. And I just told her that I wanted her to keep all of that in her room. I didn't want it all over the house. And I said, I don't keep my stuff laying all over the house. And she agreed. She didn't like it, but she agreed. And I even found some Jehovah Witness people here, and I found the Kingdom Hall and all, but for some reason she didn't want to go.
Do you know why?
Mm-mm. No, I think a lot of it was because she wasn't familiar with this area. She grew up, she was born and raised in Charleston, and it was just hard for her to make new friends and mingle with people. And so she just didn't go. And I thought, okay, well, she got to where she was leaving her stuff laying all over the house. So my husband and we had a talk, and we talked to her and just asked her to please keep it in there. We had a TV set up for her. She could do watch whatever she wanted on TV, do their whatever, Kingdom Hall stuff on TV, whatever.
Broadcast.
Yeah.
JW broadcast.
Yeah, yes. And but she got very offended by it. And so she bucked, and she went back to Charleston, and then she was just from pillar to post. And I was all the time having to go down there and help her move from pillar to post. And she would get with her sister and go to the Kingdom Hall, but she only did that every now and then. But she still claimed that she believed that was the truth. And but she got real sick, really, really bad sick. And it was right after COVID broke out that nobody would go see her. None of the witnesses down there. They would go every once in a while and knock on her door, but they would stand on the other side of the sidewalk and asked her if she needed anything. And that was it. And so she was just getting sicker and sicker. I didn't know what all was going on with her. And then a couple springs ago, I was down there every week, taking her to doctors, and but she was trying to cancel those appointments. And so I got to where I started helping her make appointments. And I just told them, I said, don't let her, I said, if she calls to cancel, go along with it, but don't cancel it. Because I wanted to know what was going on with her physically. And then, but she got real adamant about canceling them. And I just flat out told her, I said, Mom, I cannot keep coming down here. It was a 4-hour drive for me, one way. Yeah. I can't keep doing this because I got to work. You really need to come up here. And I said, I know you don't want to live with us. I'm cool with that. I'll find you an apartment. She said, I'll think about it. So then finally, one of my cousins that was never ever a Jehovah Witness, she would stay in touch with my mom. My mom loved her, and she did tell my mom that if I brought it up again, that she would come. So when my cousin told me that, I found an apartment immediately because I knew if I didn't act right away and find something right away, it would be no time she changed her mind. She did. She came up and we started finding out all of her physical ailments, and it was beyond being able to do anything for her. And so she was here about a year and a half, but she was in an apartment right around the corner from me. And as she got, things started progressing with her, we got her on hospice and put cameras in the home and all because she wanted her independence. And some witnesses here would go and visit her, and they would actually go visit her, go sit in the house with her and talk with her a little bit. And she seemed to like that, but she couldn't wait for him to leave. And she would never go to the Kingdom Hall, and it wasn't 5 minutes away from here. And this was before she got so bad where she couldn't walk anymore. And then one time my sister came from Wisconsin down here to visit. And so my sister, I kind of feel like my sister kind of made her feel like she needed to go. So she did go one time with my sister, and then that was it. And my sister could tell that my mom really physically was not able to do stuff like that anymore. So then they did try to come visit her a little more often, but then she just got to where she wouldn't answer the door.
Oh, so when she died, did they have a funeral service at the Kingdom Hall for her, or no?
No.
Okay.
No. I ended up being her POA, so and I just honored her wishes. She did not want a blood transfusion, and she did not, and I always knew that. So I told her, and especially since her ailments were just so bad, I said I would never try to force anything on her, and I wouldn't do that anyway because she wasn't demented. She could make her own decisions, and I was not going to make those for her. So I wasn't going to try to force her to do do not resuscitate, no blood transfusion. And she was really scared about dialysis, but they did talk to her about dialysis, and they said that was a conscience thing.
A conscience.
So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't get that. Okay. So
yeah.
why would there be like any argument against dialysis? That's a bit strange.
Because it pumps out blood and puts it back in, and they talk about drinking blood.
Okay, right. Okay.
It's not drinking blood. It's not drinking blood. I'm like, I used to have that argument with her, but I learned to stop it, and especially because she was old and real sick. I just, whatever you want, Mom.
Even though she believed in the doctrine, she didn't want the blood transfusions and things like that, but she wouldn't go to the Kingdom Hall, and she didn't really want to be bothered much later on with them. I wonder why that is.
I don't know. One thing I've thought about was before she came up here the second time, she did have to live with us for 3 weeks because we had to wait on the people to finish up their lease in the apartment, and then they had to have a week of cleaning the apartment before she could move in. So she was here with us for 3 weeks. Before she came up here, she was at her sister's house, and I did take her there. There was this crazy thing after it was said that I was bad association when I was 11. 10 years later, there was this big announcement at one of their conventions. They said that there was this new enlightening, and they realized they had dealt with different categories of situations, maybe not correctly, not the best way or something. And I ended up falling into one of those categories. My mom was really thrilled about that. And my aunt and my sister, they acted like they were thrilled, but they still had a hard time with me for years and years. And my sister always did. My aunt ended up coming around later. Um, but I think she realized that I was probably the only one in the family that would be able to take care of my mom.
Wow. And the,
When
the one that didn't stay in the religion.
I know. And I'm honored that I got to do that with her. And I did let her know, because she would reminisce so much about the past. And both of my parents had a lot of regret that ate up at them. And that may have been partly why. Maybe she was ate up with guilt. And I would just try to let her know that I had forgiven her. I had forgiven my dad. It took a lot for
Yeah.
me to get to that point. But I had done that a long time ago. And I still remember a lot of things. And I told her, I said, some things still I don't like, and it makes me feel kind of blah. But I don't feel that anxiety and
Yeah.
hate and all of that anymore. And I am a Christian, and I do pray, and I take whatever is bothering me, whatever, good or bad, anything, and I take it in prayer to God, and I know that He helps me. So, and I just had to tell her that's where I'm at with it. But we were at her sister's house, and just before she came up the second time, and I don't know what led up to the conversation, but that, and I call it a cult, came up. And I would just, instead of getting all bent out of shape and upset and everything, I would just excuse myself from the conversation. So I know that they were, and I've learned what they were doing when they would talk to me. That was their way of getting their time in. So,
Yes.
yeah, I learned that real quick. So I put a stop to it real quick. And I would just back off. But then as I've been growing in my relationship with God, I've built a confidence of being able to share what I know to be true. And I just flat out told her, and I don't know what led up to it. And I just told her, I said, it's a cult. It is a cult. And I said, and Daddy was right. And my mom, she said, do you really believe that? I said, yeah, I do. I know it. And I could tell she was kind of thinking. It was like the wheels were turning. So I don't know if it was all of that. I don't know. But there was a sweet peace with her when when she left us. And I really feel like God was working on my mom while she was here. And I didn't have to go preachy. I didn't have to get preachy with her.
Yeah.
And I just had to take care of her physical being, and I believe He took care of the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you were 11, or around that age, 10, 11, did you ever question the doctrines, or why did you not follow like your sister did?
Mom would make us have the Bible studies at home. I didn't get to play with my friends from school a lot, and the neighborhood kids, very little. Our relatives, they were not Jehovah Witnesses, and we were a close family. And like I said, my parents, they were so young when they got married. They grew up. They have a fairy tale history that was true for them. They grew up 3 houses away from each other. They met when she was 4 and my dad was 8. And when my dad was 13, he knew he was going to marry her and he was going to spend the rest of his life with her. And they did. They ended up getting married at 16 and he was 20 and they were together till he passed away in 2009.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but it was really hard and my dad, he loved us. Um and he loved my mom. He was hurt. The anger was hurt and it came out in really bad ways. And so
I guess there wasn't how was Christmas? I mean, like if your dad was celebrating it and
no, he now while I was little, he would get a Christmas tree because I wanted a Christmas tree.
uh-huh.
And so we had a farm, my grandmother's farm, and we worked the farm every weekend. And as I got older, I spent weeks and summers and everything up there, and we worked hard on the farm. And we would pick out a real live tree out in the woods, and all of that was just fun. And so he and I would decorate the tree, but he was always just really sad.
Hmm. So
Real sad.
you and him celebrating, right?
Yeah. And he would just remember my mom before she became a Jehovah Witness. She went all out on the holidays. She loved Christmas. And she would deck the house out and outside the house. And, it just hurt my dad really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then my brothers came along and they wanted to do the Christmas thing too. And my mom, she would, she wouldn't go along and celebrate, but she would kind of go along with it to a degree to try to keep some kind of peace in the home.
Right.
But she resented it.
Okay. And your older sister, she wouldn't celebrate. Okay.
No, no.
And she still believes in it today, you said, right?
Yes,
Have you
yes.
ever tried to talk to her about some of the doctrines that Jehovah's Witnesses teach?
Oh, she tries to talk to me and she's one of those one once and she's a nice person.
Yeah.
She's a really nice person. She and I, we never got along when we were growing up, and I know that's why. It was this stuff between our parents, and you know, she went along that way and I bucked, and just we just never ever got along. And at one time she did tell me, I think I was 31 years old, and she told me, she apologized to me. She said, Nancy, I'm so sorry. I hated you when we were growing up. And it was more than just sibling rivalry. I think she and I and my siblings, we were just doing the best we could in our home, and we all handled it the only way we could. And because we were so different and we were so far apart in age, nothing in common. She's gotten to where she doesn't do that as often as she used to, just like my mom got to that point. Because I will share. We can, like with my mom, we would have conversations. And just after she moved up here this second time, and we would have conversations and we could agree up to a point. And then I would have to let her know I don't agree. And this is what I know. And it would upset my mom. So, and it's not that she got mad at me, but she would just get real upset. And then that would affect her ailments. And so I would just tell her we don't need to be talking about this stuff. And so, no, no, she doesn't very often, but um, she will let me know. She does try to have a communicate with me. Um, but their kingdom ministry stuff always trumps before anything else.
Right. And
Yeah.
you know, she's going to see you as a worldly person.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your opinion is just of the world, and and when you said your mother would get upset, Jehovah's Witnesses are told they're right. They have the truth. So if you disagree, it really burns them up, this anger they have inside. Uh,
Yeah.
they're told that they have an answer for everything. For every question there is in life, there's an answer cherry picked from the scriptures.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it does create a lot of that whole environment of being Jehovah's Witness in general is very negative. It's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression,
It is. It
anger,
is.
a lot of
There
that.
was a time when, with my ex-husband, he wasn't a witness or anything, but we had a lot of problems for a long time, and uh, it was just real bad. I would leave and go back and leave and go back, and I finally just had enough. And I thought, you know what? I have heard all my life that the my mom, what she believes is a cult, and that it was bad and that it was wrong and blah blah blah, and remembering everything I heard my dad say, family members from both his side, my dad's side, and her side, my mom's side. And I'm like, you know what? Some Jehovah Witnesses came to my door, and I just thought, okay, I'm going to see what they really teach, and hopefully I won't hear the Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah.
And so they started me. I said, okay. So we ended up having 4 Bible studies, and no,
What
no,
was it off to their
huh?
what was it that turned you off in the studies?
It was where they talk about the Trinity and how they don't believe in the Trinity, and that they're uh, God and Jesus, they are not the same, and the Holy Spirit is not the same. And that, I've been a Christian now for 30 years. It was a roller coaster ride the first bunch of years of that, too. But I know it was just a lot of things were being undone. And then I finally got to the point, because I didn't want anything to do with anybody's religion. I knew there was a God, and I knew there was a devil, and one was good and one was bad. I knew there was angels, and I knew there were demons. One set was good, one was bad. But I didn't know anything about either one. And I've learned. And so when we got up to that point, when that started coming in on our lessons, I said, but it says this about where Jesus was talking and saying, I am in he and I, we are one, talking about the vine and the branches and all of that stuff. And that is not what it says in their Bible. And see, I was reading from my Bible, and I said, but it does say it here. And I showed it to the lady. And it's really funny because the lady was about my mom's age, and her name was Mary. And I'll just leave that at that. And but at it was the fourth study. By the third one, I was like, I don't know, and I said, I guess maybe I get what people were talking about, but it was that fourth study I knew
Okay.
this ain't right. This is not right. This is not the truth. And I spoke up, and that lady, she snapped at me like I was a kid, and she was in my house. And
They do that.
yeah, she talked to me like I was her daughter. And I just kind of reared back and she said, "Well, we'll just take a little break right now. You go get you something to drink. We'll take a little break here and I'll go outside and make a phone call and I'll come back and we'll finish our study." So I was always raised to be respectful to elders, to older people. I did not want to be respectful to her. She was in my house. She was not being respectful to me in my house. So, and I'm like, okay. So we sat down and I didn't open my books. And I just sat back. I said, "We're done. You can go. We're not doing this anymore." And she said, "You need to get that Bible," talking about my Bible. "You need to get that out of the house. That is of the devil. This is the truth." I said, "No. And you better go right now." And it was kind of funny because the first three, she came by herself. That one, she brought in a lady, a younger woman, closer to my age, but still a little older. And that woman didn't say a word the whole time. And I think it kind of surprised her a little bit, the way the old lady was talking to me, and she just kind of not just hung her head and shook her head, you know. So she wasn't surprised that it went the way it went.
Yeah. So you never got to 1914 doctrine, huh? In your
No, I heard my mom talk about it a lot. The 1914, and then I do remember the 1975
uh
stuff.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I was a little girl. I was a big little girl then,
Yeah.
and I was scared to death
Yeah. Stay alive to
because
life.
because I wasn't baptized. I
Yeah.
was scared. I thought that Jehovah was going to take me out because I wasn't baptized.
Yep. Destroy you in Armageddon.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. And all those pictures. Now the pictures in those books.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody remembers. I think it was called the Paradise book.
Uh,
And
what color is it?
it's a peachy, orangey peachy color.
Okay. I have a bunch of old books. I probably have it.
And I remember my mom starting the studying with me when I was little. We started in what was called that, and I don't know if they still have it anymore, but it was called the Great Teacher
Yes.
book.
I have
Yep.
the book. They don't use it anymore, but I studied in that. I mean, we had lessons in that book too, and it's supposed to be about Jesus, I think.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, the Great Teacher. And then when you get older, you graduate. If back then you graduated from that to the Paradise book, but it was all age appropriate.
Okay. I
But
don't.
it was scary. It was so scary.
Well, did you ever know about the Revelation book? Probably not, because it.
I I remember them going through the Revelation book
Okay.
on Tuesday nights at their book studies,
Yes.
and
Scary book.
I, yeah, I was scared to death. I was
Yeah.
scared to death all the time. So it was like as I was growing up, I lived in fear all the time. I lived in fear of that, and
Mhm.
I was afraid of my dad.
Sure.
He would take his anger out on me. I caught the brunt of it, his anger.
That's
So,
sad because you just didn't know how to handle the situation, it sounds like.
no.
I know, like, my brother and I, I grew up a witness, third generation. So, born in. Um, and my brother and I, we had to study that book, the Revelation book at the book study and all. And I remember we both had nightmares a lot of times.
I know. I did. I did too.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking as a child that I was going to go to jail because of persecution, because you think that you're going to be persecuted by the authorities and
Yeah.
they're going to gather us up and put us in jail. So I would be scared of that, plus
Yes.
scared of Armageddon. And if I
Yes.
couldn't. you know.
Yeah, so
But a child should not feel that way, you know?
oh, no, but you get it. Yeah, yeah. I was scared. I was scared to death. And then, I would hear some, my room was on the other side of the wall from my parents, and I would hear some, you know, arguing going on and some other things. And so there was just that. And so my mom got to where she would hide. She started hiding all of her material because my dad hated it, couldn't stand it. So she hid it in my bedroom closet.
Okay.
And she would, my closet door would never shut all the way. And just sometimes my imagination would run wild, and I would see things coming out, just the imagination, a kid's imagination just going crazy. And so I would look outside my bedroom window, and I would look at the street light just to help me not be quite so afraid. And then when I would have nightmares, um, they would yell at me and just tell me, be quiet and go back to sleep. So and
Yeah.
I didn't get comforted from the nightmares at all.
Yeah, I actually was scared of the dark a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't sleep with the lights off. I had to sleep with the lights on. And even
yeah,
then, I couldn't just fall asleep comfortably. Uh,
yeah,
and I never knew, like, why am I so scared of the dark? I mean, because my parents made sure I didn't watch anything scary. So I didn't know why am I scared. But of course, now I know, like, it's that religion is so, it has a very negative feelings
yeah,
and brings out a lot of negative emotions in people.
yeah. It was like we were reading horror flicks.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of watching
Yeah.
the movie, we were reading the horror flicks.
Right. Yeah, we don't need to be reading stuff that's like poltergeist stuff, you know what I mean?
I know.
When we're just kids. Right. Well, I'm glad you were able to realize at a young age that this wasn't for you, but it's interesting that like later on you thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to study with the witnesses. Maybe I missed something.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that I was going to give it a try. I really just I wanted to know
Yeah.
what it was about. I really did not want to go to the Kingdom Hall, but I did go. I did go a couple of times because I wanted to form a decision, not just based on what family people said or
Mhm.
school friends said or and their parents or teachers said while I was growing up, or even even in church. And it's not that they say bad things. They don't talk bad about witnesses at all, but they will let you know it's a cult, but they won't go talking about it. And I'm like, okay, I've heard this all my life. Why is that? And so I just laid low for a little while after I left my ex-husband, and um, I found out. I found out, and I'm like, no, I have the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
Well, you
So
need confirmation. Like, what are they really teaching? So that's good.
yeah, yeah. I went to the Kingdom Hall, I think, twice on like a Thursday night, and or maybe it was just a book study, and then I went to the Kingdom Hall one Thursday night. And when I walked in the building, that smell in their Kingdom Hall, it just has a very for me, I'm big into smells. And it is a very distinct smell, and it just like whoosh, and it brought everything back. And I'm like, oh God. So I sat there, and I went twice. I went to a Sunday meeting before the Thursday meeting. The Sunday, it was so boring.
Yes, they're boring.
Oh God. But I understood what they were saying. And so I knew that's not the direction I was going to go, but I knew I was learning something. It was just a quest, a journey, a little journey that I was on. And it was
Yeah.
for me to know why, and not just taking people's words. Then I went Thursday. That smell. That's all I can, And then but at that time, there was some differences, but it was still the same thing. And it was during their theocratic
Ministry school, yep.
ministry school.
Mhm.
And the people were going up there on the stage,
Mhm.
and it's almost like they were drilling, almost like in boot camp. And like you said, just drilling on how to come come back at somebody with an answer to something over and over. And I just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And I was sitting by that older lady, and I just looked over at her and I said, I gotta go. I
Wow.
didn't tell her why. I just said, I gotta go. And I had to wear pantyhose that day. Well, both days. I hate pantyhose. And so, I just told her I had had a long day and I needed to go. So I left. Then she came over, and I kind of knew I wasn't going to be going back after that, but I was trying to be polite to her, but I knew I was going to have to tell her. But then that situation happened in my house.
Mhm.
No, no, you're not going to. I just told her, I said, I'm not a child. I said, I've been taught, I was raised by parents, be respectful to older people, but you are not going to treat me this way in my home. So you better go. And she said, well, you must have just had a long, hard day. We'll pick this up next week. I said, no, we're done. You're not coming back here. And so she said, well, you need to rest, and you'll probably feel different tomorrow. I called her up the next day. I said, you're not coming back. She was like, okay. So
She was disappointed because she wasn't getting those hours in.
I know.
And I know, like, my husband studied with the witnesses. He never became one, but he studied. And an elder came to the house and yelled at him as well. Yelled at him in our own house. And I just like, what gives them the right? What makes them think that this is appropriate behavior? If you're trying to get converts to your religion, you should be nice to them.
Duh. I
Yeah.
know. It
And
just.
yeah. And their
So
whole like New World Translation Bible is totally different. I mean, I've done comparisons with other translations, and they
me
have
too.
a lot in there, so
Yeah, I have too. I mean, because while I was taking care of my mom, at first she had things out. She would read a little bit and look at the magazines, the Watchtower and Awake, and um, and she would say how that made her feel better just reading those things. I'm like, okay. So I bought her some puzzles, and she ended up doing the puzzles more than she did those. As time progressed with my mom, and her health got really bad, and hospice came in on the scene, and they helped me with her. And I was there so much. It got to where I was having to miss some church, and I was feeling very depleted. And so, um, my friends would stay in contact with me, and they helped me. I couldn't have got through it without them in hospice, and God, of course, and even before them, and my husband now. We've been married 14 years, and he's he's been a godsend for me.
oh,
Uh,
Good.
precious gift. And, you know, he couldn't do a lot for her, but he hated that cult. And, you know, but he loved my mom, and she really was a sweet lady, and she was very grateful to him and to me. And I just believe my mom was seeing a difference, that the people in the world, not all of us are bad people,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that was good for her.
Well, the religion teaches that, so it's hard for the rank and file, as we call it, to see worldly people in a different way. Like they just automatically put worldly people as satanic or evil people.
Oh
So
yeah.
trust them. And so if you can break that, that's amazing. That's an accomplishment for sure.
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, I didn't get preachy with her, but I believe that, you know, we're just to let the Lord shine through us as we live and walking through life. And not that we think we're better at all than anybody else. But just just
Mhm.
do what needs to be done. She's my mom. She was my mom, and I loved her. And I was not going to let her die in the roach infested, snail infested, wasp infested tiny apartment that she was in down there. So I just,
Sad that the people in her congregation down there were not taking care of her like they should. And see, that's another thing. It's like the witnesses want to act like they have all this brotherly love, and they really don't help each other out, not the way that they should, as they
right.
do. And also, they don't do any charity work.
Oh,
Uh,
I know. I know.
Right.
I know that. And that's been, my mom and I, we would have discussions, and I would, she'd say, well, what do you and Greg have going on? And I would tell her. And, and this was, before it just got to the point where I had to give her 24/7, and practically. And, we do like to get out in the community. We go to a church that is about community outreach. We do need each other, and we need that fellowship in church, but we are needed out in the community. So when I would tell her things, she would just say, y'all are just too busy. Y'all are just too busy. And we don't do that. We never did that. Oh, we just went door to door and did Bible studies. And I'm like, I said, but I thought we were supposed to help each other. Well, we are at the Kingdom Hall. We do help each other out. And I said, but people in the world need help. And how are they going to get to know God or anything if we don't live it? And she said, well, that's why we go door to door, and then we do Bible studies.
Yeah, so that's definitely not the way to help people out though, because they think of it as like life-saving work is saving them so that they can make it to paradise, but they don't want to
Mhm.
help them people that need help now. Because this life doesn't matter.
Right. And what
Yeah.
I did tell her, I'm like, well, how do you think? How do you think? And I put it in this little scenario, and it did upset her. But I just told her, I said, you know, I'm the type of person, I put myself in other people's shoes. How would I want, or how would I come to know God? And it really, that is the way it was. Um, would it be through somebody that just wants to have Bible studies and book studies and go to church or go to the Kingdom Hall, and that's it, and go to work and then do that? Versus if I am, if I'm hurting and I'm down and out, and I need help, and then people come up alongside of me, and they know God. How how are people supposed to be influenced and want to be led to God? She didn't like that very much, but so that's when I was just told her, so we need to start talking about something else and change the subject really fast because I didn't want her getting sick.
Sure. My mother is very sweet lady herself, and but she's very much into the religion, very much a zealot, very much a believer, and there is nothing you can say or do that will change her mind. And even if you were to share something that could make her question, like the fact that Jehovah's Witness organization joined the UN, there's proof.
I just found that out here. My mom didn't tell me about that, and
Did she know about it?
I don't know. My mom was um she was sweet. She was so sweet, but she was very sneaky too. And she knew what to say, when to say, and what not to say, and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Well, I actually did share it with my mother when I was first questioning my beliefs because I wasn't doing it to be negative. I was just like, I didn't know this. Did you know this? Because
Yeah,
first off, I started out with a question with her in a text and I said, would the organization ever, or the society, would they ever join the UN? Oh, no, no, never. They would never do that. The whore of Babylon. And I'm like, well, here's proof that they did. And I sent her the letter. And she said, well, I don't know. And then just ignored what I said. So
she sounds like my sister and my aunt. Yeah,
it's like they don't want no they don't want to hear or see or speak no evil, So if
right.
something scares them, they just pretend like it didn't happen.
Right, because they have fallen for that lie and they've lived it all of their lives and I would imagine being an older person and then learning hearing something and finding out that it's true. I could, my mom, if she was in better health and if I would have said something and I'm just learning a lot now about the deep dark stuff that's been going on for a very long time. And so I don't know a lot about the UN yet, but I'm learning. And but if my mom was in better health and if I would have brought that up to her, she would have denied it like
Mhm.
your mother. She probably would have got upset,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have changed. I know my mom. It wouldn't have changed her mind. She would have just said, that's the persecution,
Yeah.
the world lying about us. So this is how we know. This is another thing that's showing us we have the truth.
Yeah. If there's any negative information out there, they think they're just being persecuted, which proves their point.
Right.
They have the truth.
Yeah.
It's sad that they think that
It
way, or that
is sad.
apostate information, like they're not willing to listen if it's negative. Uh, well, negative information is true sometimes.
Right. The truth hurts a lot of times.
I know, like my husband has asked her stuff like something about like looking up something on the internet and about Jehovah's Witnesses, and she's like, I don't look at that stuff. That's apostate. Just she doesn't want to hear anything.
Right. Right. Well, when my mom first got up here the second time, we put everything in the house she was going to need, the life alert, got her a really nice TV, and just set her up really good. And she had it on. We didn't put satellite or cable in the house, but she did have internet. So she got the jw.org, and that's all she would watch.
Wow.
And but as time went on, it got to where she was watching that less and less. And I mean, I had no complaints. I was glad. Um, but if she had it on while I was there, I would just say I would pray and real quietly to myself, and I'd go in the kitchen and fixing her whatever meal or laundry or doing her laundry or making her bed or whatever, and I would just say, Lord, please let me hear the Charlie Brown teacher. Let me hear the Charlie Brown teacher again. And but I didn't. I did hear things, and I'm like, oh God. Oh God, but I was old enough to handle it, and I would just shake it off. And but then, like I said, she just got to where she was watching it less and less, and she got to where she didn't watch it at all anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah, for about, I'm gonna say, several months before she passed. Maybe 5 or 6 months. She just stopped watching it.
And she didn't go to the meetings or didn't go out in service.
No,
At what
no.
age did she stop going to the meetings?
Um, she stopped several times. She was introduced to witnesses way before I was born, and my sister was a little girl. And I think my dad started bucking her, and they were so young that she just stopped going. But she said she never stopped believing. And then she stayed that way mm, until we moved into the house. We moved into when we left the farm and moved into the house when I was a year old. And the witness lady came down there to her. She got back into it, and then um, it was just, oof.
She went regularly for years.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, my dad would not let her take me, and he would let her take my sister occasionally. And I remember being on his lap when she would come in, and he wouldn't. And when a mom comes home, and she's got a baby toddler, a little small one at home, and she wants to get home and love it. Well, that's what she wanted to do with me. And my dad wouldn't let her touch me.
That was his punishment. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to her because I had missed her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, um, but she stayed faithful and in there with the JWs, and then my brothers started coming along, and as they got older, she just got to where she was missing more meetings and not going out in service as much, and then it just got to the point where she was just completely inactive.
And was this when your brothers were still growing up that she became inactive?
Yeah.
And she never became active again?
She did, after all of us were gone. My dad was getting really bad sick, and so he was retired then, and he was really bad off, and had diabetes and heart issues, and and strokes, and it got so bad where he couldn't fight her anymore. So she started going back. And then she says, she's told me that there was one time after he got really bad sick with pneumonia and thought he was going to die. And she says that he told her that um, he was sorry for how he treated her and us kids as we were growing up, and that he just, if she wanted to go back, go, just go. But he wasn't gonna fight her on it. And then she says that she's added something into it, and I don't know if it was true or not, and I probably will never know. But she said that my dad told her that he would go with her. I really have a hard time believing that. I really do. But I mean, he may have said that just to make her feel better, and because he loved her so much. And you know, he was so sick, he just didn't have it in him to fight her. So,
Right.
but And he never did go.
Okay.
Yeah, he never did go. That's why I just
Did
like,
you go to any church at all or no?
no, but my dad, do you remember the Waltons, the
Yeah.
show? My dad was like the daddy
Okay.
on that show. And he was raised in church. And I don't know if he was baptized or not, but he was raised in church. And in fact, I have his Bible from when he was a little boy. He didn't want to go to any church. He was a hardworking man, and so he dedicated. He was in the Air Force. He served in 54 through 58, and he got an honorable discharge. Um, and my mom always says that he got out of it because of his mother. And I do believe that was part of it because there was a lot of bad stuff that happened really with both of my parents in their home that was bad,
Like a cycle.
like a cycle, yeah. But it didn't have to do with Jehovah Witness stuff.
Yeah.
But my dad just always grew up knowing that he was not going to ever leave his family like his dad did. But his dad, he left the family, but him and my papa and grandma never divorced. My grandma would not give him a divorce. Um, and so he was kind of stuck. And my dad, he wanted to be different than his dad. And so he tried, but he just didn't want anything to do with church at all. But he did believe in God. My dad was a hard man, but he was a good man, and he was kind too to people, and he'd give you the shirt off his back,
Yeah.
and he would do anything to help anybody, and that's how they raised us kids.
Hmm.
Well, um, but that's really not how the witnesses are.
Right.
So really, it was my dad that did input that in us. But
Yeah.
I never told my mom that because I didn't want to hurt her because she was already beating herself up about a lot of stuff.
Well, you grew up in a divided household, one believing, one not.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's why they always told us growing up that not to marry an unbeliever because it
right,
create a lot of division and stuff. It's true.
right. And it hurt her family and my dad's family because, like I said, they were so young when they met and grew up together, went to school together. There were five kids in my mom's family and five on my dad's family and three houses away. And they were, just it was really just like a fairy tale, but it was really happened. And so my mom wasn't a Jehovah Witness all her life. So my mom's family grew to love my dad's family, and my dad's family grew to love my mom's family. And so when my mom became a Jehovah Witness, that hurt everybody. And my mom always said that she was being persecuted by everybody because of the truth.
But she had a sister that joined too, right?
Yeah, she did. It was two sisters, but one got out when she was real young.
Oh, okay.
But it was after they grew up and they left their home growing up. Yeah,
Wow. So
yeah,
they must all think the similar way because they joined the religion as adults, like three of them.
yeah. But my Aunt Connie, I mean, I I know very little about her. I've seen her a couple times. I did see her and spend a little time with her when my dad passed away. She was down there. Um, and um, so I got to know her a little bit. And I don't know if she really ever really believed it, but when she was in it, I think she was more in it because her sisters were in it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
The influence there.
Mhm. She wanted her sisters. There were 2 boys and 3 girls in their home, and she was the baby girl, and I think she wanted that closeness with her sisters.
Yeah.
But when she got out of it, I never saw her again for a long, long, long time. And then it was very brief. When you were talking about nightmares earlier, I had forgotten about all the nightmares and just being afraid all the time and all of that. And we talked about that. But I also, and it just came to me that I remember thinking when my mom would make me go, and if there was a bad storm outside, I was afraid Armageddon was coming. And I thought, but if I'm in here, I won't get caught in Armageddon and I'll get to live in paradise.
I thought the same thing, that anytime there was a storm, I always was concerned it could be Armageddon. I think every kid thought that way.
And that's really bad when you grow up in an area that has hurricanes.
Oh.
So, yeah, and had electrical storms because, in Charleston, it's right there on the coast. And, we got hit in 89, Hurricane Hugo in 89 and slammed Charleston. But by then I was completely out of it. And, but yeah, but when I was in it, I was scared to death of the storms or a tornado or an electrical storm. And I just thought, I'm going to drown because Charleston floods. And I thought, oh God, I'm going to drown. A kid's mind goes wild, and especially when you're being fed all of that stuff.
And your sister must have felt the same way.
I don't know. She never said anything.
Thanks for sharing your story and coming today and telling us about your how you were involved with Jehovah's Witnesses and your family.
Yeah. But life is good. I've got a good life. So there is always hope.
Yes, that's the thing we have to tell everyone, that there's always hope, no matter how bad you feel.
Right.
Especially for maybe new people who are questioning their beliefs as Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're, a lot of them might come out here on YouTube and look for answers and see what's out here. But a lot of people will feel very depressed initially, especially if they have an emotional attachment to the religion. But there's definitely hope. It just takes time. It's never going to be overnight, especially if you've been in it your whole life.
I kind of feel lucky that and blessed that I got out of it at an early age, and when I got out of it, then I brought a lot of junk on my own self, and lived a life that way. But I got out of it, even that. And is my life perfect? No, but it's good. All I can say is there is always hope. There is, but you got to work through it. You got to just dig your heels in and take however long it takes. But I do feel kind of lucky that I got out of it at a young age and wasn't in my 30s, 40s, 50s, 80s, 70s or 80s coming out of it and had a lifelong of that. I can see that being very devastating.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing your story today. What I really enjoyed was her raw honesty about navigating something so many people can relate to. That feeling of being caught between worlds, between family expectations and your own inner voice. Her story shows us that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is just don't make a decision that doesn't feel authentic to who you are. And for anyone who is listening who grew up in a similar situation or who is currently struggling with the family pressures to be a Jehovah's Witness, to get baptized, or if you've already gotten baptized, if you feel the pressure to continue going down this path that you just don't feel is right for you, I hope her story reminds you that your feelings are valid and your questions matter, and ultimately you have the right to make your own path, even when that path looks different from what others expect, especially your family. So just make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. And remember, we've got more powerful conversations like this one coming up, so stay tuned for more. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and remember, your journey is your own. So stay tuned for more, and we will see you again soon.